what happened then, we all believed in the Dragaduca, but we didn't really believe that she could steal all the things that she did. And the one story about my dad is that they had a small town, they had a small farm in Minnesota, 10 acres, not very big, and they had seed plots of barley and wheat and other small grains, and they were too small to use a horse and a mower. It wasn't worth it, and so they used scythes, two-handed scythes.
I actually have used a scythe and stacked wheat sheaves.
Yeah, I've stacked wheat sheaves.
By
that time they were using a horse and mower.
Well, on the Turner farm in Beausejour, Manitoba, when I was about 14 years old, 1956.
Yeah, they did. Well, this was smaller than that big an operation, but they still took that, and so they sharpened the scythes with whetstones.
Yeah,
and we lost dozens every year of whetstones. And we all believed in the Dragaduca, but we didn't believe the Dragaduca could steal not that many whetstones at all. And my dad said once that he got blamed for losing them, and he had several whippings for losing all that Dragaduca. Okay, we had the farmhouse, and the farmhouse was built. In the 1890s.
This is in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Is this Northfield, Minnesota?
No, it was out of town from there.
Outside of Northfield.
It was a regular farm on the edge. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't very big. And
no, has Northfield expanded around the farm now?
Yeah. By now, the farm has become my brother and my Christmas tree farm. And yes, whereas if you took your 22 or your shotgun, as long as you fired north, you couldn't hit anything other than the wind and a few trees. Yeah. And now, of course, houses have gone down both sides. The 10 acres is still intact, and my brother and I have even expanded it. But then they put in an elementary school on the far side. So we are now apart. Downtown is a lot closer than it was when I grew up.
Well, at least it's a Christmas tree farm, not a pig farm. Because if it was a pig farm, they would have closed you down by now, because that's
we were into good, clean living.
Good, clean living, okay.
Okay, so on that. So this house, built in 1895, had been added, as they had more children, grandchildren, everything else on the farm, then it had been expanded. Several other additions to the house. But it had never been remodeled. Okay, so I was about 12, my brother was about 9, say 11 and 8, something like that. And the house was going to be remodeled. And this
was we're talking in 1940 or so.
55 more like.
55, okay. And the house is now 60 years old.
Yeah, well, but in the house, 1895 up to, I was 60 years old.
60 years old, okay.
And the thing was that it had never been remodeled, but it had been added onto. So the first thing you do is you tear it apart. And there by the kitchen dining room, we tore out the gyprock or whatever they used at that time.
Lath and plaster.
Yeah, lath and plaster, sure. And there between the studs, we found 14 spoons, about 4 from my grandmother's silver collection.
Yeah.
We found a stack of coins, the earliest dated 1893.
You're kidding.
No, not a bit. And then there it was, and my dad, of course, immediately appropriated the coins, put it in a flour sack. But also, and then other things, magazines. There was a sickle. Various pens and pencils and things like that, jackknife, but also 37 whetstones.
In the walls.
And my dad, when that happened, my dad was here, my dad just looked at that pile of whetstones and sort of rubbed his backside, and he said, "There's at least 6 or 8 whippings, 6 to 10 whippings in that pile of whetstones." because we lost all these whetstones.
And his dad would take the whetstone, right?
Yeah, and this is my father talking now. I got blamed, and down would come the switch.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he said, You know, maybe Uncle Freeman's story is true after all. And my brother and I said, what was Uncle Freeman's story? My dad took the coins and said, I'll tell you after supper, get back to work. And that was the end of that story. And I'm not going to tell what happened to Uncle Freeman's story, which is in the book.
Because you got to buy the book.
Yeah, you got to buy the book.
All right, let's go back to, and it's a cute book. It's a neat book.
We got a very good print job.
I read it in its original version. Remember, you gave me one. We went out for lunch, and you gave me the original version. And it was fascinating. I mean, I started reading. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And why? I mean, I'm not even sure what I am.
Well, finally you're a romantic, sir. You know, I mean, there's that element.
I've always been a romantic.
Yeah.
But you were an English professor.
Yep.
And you had students that got Rhodes scholarships. And
I did. Laurie Ormrod.
Yeah. And you've taught all around the world. You've taught in Norway.
I've taught in Norway.
You've taught in Minnesota. You've taught at UBC, SFU,
California,
University of Western Washington.
Yeah. Because we had to retire at 65.
Not anymore. You don't.
No, I know.
They changed the law.
It didn't help me one bit.
Not one iota.
No, not yet anyway. But that's right. We had to retire at that time, and then 5 years later they changed the law, and I would still be teaching. I wouldn't be teaching full time any longer, but if.
But you loved teaching, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, but if there was a course to teach, I would do it.
You and Gordon Edwards and so on, and
and also now they have at Simon Fraser downtown. They have we refer to it as the geriatric course,
yes,
and this is taught by retired professors, basically to retired people.
Oh.
But in the community, and I could still do, but I haven't I've gotten too busy. And so I haven't done that yet, but that's
you've got to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I also have to go to Minnesota in the summertime to fish.
Got to go to Minnesota to fish.
Yeah, and swim, and generally, I mean, I've been going there since the time I was 11.
Did you see what's the biggest northern pike you've ever caught?
12 pounds.
There's a picture of a fellow catching one at Seven Sisters, Manitoba, where I used to swim and fish when I was a kid. 56 pounds.
That probably may well be the world's record.
It's a record in Manitoba, that's for sure.
Because I've even seen the guy, and I've seen the fish too, stuffed in Minnesota, because it was caught. It was part of the Mississippi River system, but it was just outside of Grand Rapids, Minnesota, which is 30 miles from our cabin. And his wife was going to do something like pick blueberries for an hour, and so he just got out his pole and cast off the dam, and bang. And this one was over 50, like 52 pounds. And it certainly had the record in Minnesota, and it may have one time had the U.S. record or the world record.
Well, I think this 56-pounder came in my email today. The email
is that fairly recent?
Yeah.
Okay,
2 years ago.
That's superseded the one this one that was caught in
yeah, they got the fellow sitting
River.
there with this 56-pound fish.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah.
You know, and they're
55 inches long and 56 pounds.
They're a wonderful fish to catch because they're scary. You know, I mean, they're like an alligator without legs, and they're very fast, and they're ugly. And so when they come up out of the water, and if it's over 5 pounds, it looks like there's a monster coming right out
try a
of the water.
56-pounder.
Oh, yeah, well, no,
In fact,
I've never gotten close to that.
The picture on the screen, we still we can't bring it up, we know we're going to talk about this. The picture on the screen, what happened in this case is the fellow caught a 36-pound one. Okay? And the 56-pound came up and attacked the 36-pound on the hook, and the guy used his net to bring them both in at the same time.
Oh, yeah, see now, that
sounds like a fish
story.
They got the pictures. I mean,
Okay,
could be photoshopped, and they got the pictures.
I know it's true that large northerns will take small northerns, because the biggest fish my brother almost caught was that fish was over 20 pounds for sure, and we saw it. It was right up on the surface. And what happened is that it had this northern that was about 2 pounds in its jaw.
Yep.
And what happens is it takes a northern a while to swallow them, because they gotta go down head first.
Yep.
And so they crunch onto this thing, and he brought it up, and then he shouted to me from the boat and said, "Come out and bring on a big net." And so I did. So we had both boats there, And I got into his boat, and we had one chance, and I was
missed
going to
it.
try to. Well, no, I was going to try to. And he said, no, not yet. And then it disappeared, and finally it didn't come up, and he had a 2-pound north.
So you